At 75 bucks was the first Bitcoins ever bought. It was so cool being able to buy like local Bitcoins in America. 2012. I used to have a Bitcoin, I download Bitcoin Core QT, and then I would make a wallet, send the Bitcoins to there, export the wallet to a CD, put that export wallet on the CD, and then delete the wallet. But I had like multiple Bitcoins on these CDs, and I thought it was cool. I just had racks of CDs that were Bitcoins before hardware wallets. Thinking about how dangerous that was is just crazy. Bitcoin, because it is like kind of a living organism where like we've discovered and maintain and add to, it feels a lot like time in history. Like the Amazonian tribe that exists today, they're like still the same thing they were then, but then we have these people living in Dubai that are living like aliens. Neither of those two things really, like they are in a closed loop together, but neither of them have any effect of pulling each other in either direction. So I think it's okay that as Bitcoin grows, some people just get to a certain point and stay.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the easiest way to show your support and help the podcast grow, bringing great content to even more listeners like you. Plus, subscribing means you'll never miss an episode. And a big shout out to StampSeed for supporting the show. Their indestructible solution is perfect for protecting your Bitcoin seed phrase. Now, let's get to the reason you're here. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Your Bitcoin Story, the podcast where we dive deep into the personal journeys and vibrant culture surrounding Bitcoin. I'm your host, Gigi, and today we have an incredible guest joining us. Our guest is Webworthy, a BTC Pay core contributor and filmmaker who's been capturing the pulse of Bitcoin adoption through his camera lens. With a knack for blending technical insights and cinematic artistry, Webworthy has recently released two eye-opening documentaries, My Trust in You is Broken and Paid in Bitcoin. But that's not all. Webworthy is a class of 2012 Bitcoiner, an OG in the space who's been navigating the evolution of Bitcoin from its early days. Living in New York City for the past decade, they've had an upfront row seat to the financial and cultural shifts Bitcoin has inspired. This is going to be a fascinating conversation, so sit back, tune in, and let's uncover the Bitcoin story behind Webworthy. Webworthy, welcome to the show.
Gigi, man, thank you so much for having me. That is an epic intro. It's surreal hearing it said back to me, but thank you again so much for having me on.
It's my pleasure, man, and ever since I met you in Prague, it's been coming up to nearly a year now, about like 9 months ago. I was really, it was kind of a moment where I was hoping to meet you one day at some point, and then you just appeared there because, yeah, the work that you're doing, super happy with it, and I share it with everyone. And then, of course, with BTC Pay Server, you know, arguably one of my favorite companies in the space. And yeah, it was such a pleasure meeting you and the rest of the team. So I'm super happy to have you on the pod. We had a few reschedulings to do, but third time lucky, as I say, is always the best one. So I think it was all happened for a reason. But thanks for taking the time to jump on today.
No, I agree, man. Definitely third time's a charm. And I was the same way, like trying to meet someone and seeing them walk by, like, oh, let me grab you for a second. So hearing someone think like that about me is a treat, because I was the same way. And man, it's crazy. I've seen your show grow so much in the last year, and like, man, we'll probably talk about it today, but a year in Bitcoin feels like a decade sometimes. So it feels like you've been around forever now.
Thanks, man. So I guess before we go into those rabbit holes, let's kick it off. So as I mentioned in the intro, you're a Bitcoiner that's class of 2012. How did you initially discover Bitcoin? What was that story like?
Man, I'd say it's a little painful for a lot of Bitcoiners. There were so few that saw it for the first time and got the entire vision of what it could be. Painfully, I remember the first price was $12. Wow. Saw it and was like, this can't be real. And I had someone who was doing stuff on the dark net. I won't say who or why or what they were doing, but they said they were buying digital money at CVS and then using it in this dark net. It's like, there's no fucking way. So this is $12. I go to my friend's house, telling them about it. It's like 5 of us sitting there, and they still remind me about this price of me coming back like manic, like this thing for $12. Like, this seems like we should try this. I didn't get around, and no one else did, or none of my friends did until this like current time or this era. At $75 was the first Bitcoins ever bought, and it was so cool being able to buy like local Bitcoins in America, 2012. It was unbelievably different. Of like, if the UX is bad today, it was X bad then. And the way that I interact with Bitcoin, like I was sitting with Nifty and I like a week ago and telling her that I used to have a Bitcoin, I download Bitcoin Core QT, and then I would make a wallet, send the Bitcoins to there, export the wallet to a CD, put that export wallet on the CD, and then delete the wallet and
Wow.
have one backup. And at the time, there were so like, it was $100. Like it didn't really matter that much that was on the CD, but I had like multiple Bitcoins on these CDs, and I thought it was cool. I just had racks of CDs that were Bitcoins before hardware wallets.
Yeah.
And
Before seed phrases.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Before seed phrases. It was such a horrible thing. And I still have the CDs somewhere. I'm like, man, I used to be so much cooler than I am. But thinking about how dangerous that was is just crazy. And to answer your actual question of how I got there, I was in film school in Los Angeles from like 2010 to 2011. And I got a job, and it was kind of like a lot of film schools and art schools are very scammy. They're like predatory. This one was, it used to be a good school who had recently kind of gone down that path. So once I got a job, I left and I moved home to North Carolina because I got really into like, there's no water in Los Angeles, and like the precursor for like this like black pill doomer, the thing that kind of leads you to like maybe a lot of things are broken, and the things I thought were solutions were liberalism or this person's going to fix it, doesn't really get there. So I was living in California, moved back to North Carolina, and when I was there, I was really just like looking for trouble. I was like just digging through the darknet, just like, what is this thing? I really wanted to move to New York to cover the Occupy Wall Street stuff. I think that was a little before I'd moved back, but it was still like, this movement is still happening. Like something next is going to happen. I want to be there for it. And nothing really came from that. But really was, I had a girlfriend I didn't like. I had $500 to my name. I had kind of nothing going for me. So I was looking for something and seeing Bitcoin on the darknet, a Bitcoin addresses on groups I probably won't name here of like Middle Eastern stuff that I shouldn't have been looking at. I was like, if these competing groups that are against America or use this same thing, maybe I don't need to do either of these two bad things, and I could just like learn what this money is. And then that got me to libertarianism. And then that was just a kind of waste of time because so many of the libertarian early Bitcoiners became Bitcoin Cash people. So that's another story, but hopefully that answers your question how I got there.
No, it does. It's, always to me, it's super interesting to hear like the stories of like how people started off like in the super early days of Bitcoin. Because I have plenty of guests just like myself, that are class of 2017, and they have the usual of they jumped in for the craze and the ICOs and the whole crypto casino bullshit, and then got burnt, and then they realized, oh, actually Bitcoin is the only one that's the true decentralized money. But like the early days, like wow, like I remember myself in 2012, I was living in London, I was studying, and I remember like Bitcoin flashing, hearing it, and it wasn't the news. It was somewhere online through some like forum talking about like how it's a few $100. I think it was like 2013. I was like, I just saw it and I was like, whatever, I'm gonna go back to doing my student stuff. And like now it's like all these years later, it's like pinching yourself. It's like, man, like why didn't I look into this earlier? But I guess we all enter at our own point. But yeah, as you said, like the early days of having it on a CD and the hassle of what you have to do with today, like it's so easy. And especially even like with layer twos with like lightning payments, where it's like you whoop out your phone, bam, QR code, done. It's like it's like a million years later, right?
And to make you feel better about the 2017 entry is so much nicer. And I, even doing the early Bitcoin stuff, I still did the ICO scams. I still did all the dumb shit I should have done. So it didn't help me too much just because it wasn't as technical to know that like not every developer is a god. Like some developers are much better than other developers.
True.
It was a good time to come in.
Yeah, no, I guess it's much better, especially like, and today, like we have people, joining the space and basically plugging into the network every single day. Like today, such a different landscape to what it was, 7, 8 years ago, to what it was 10 years ago. And I'm just like curious, how is this going to evolve as like people enter in, at later dates? They're going to have such a different vision of Bitcoin, especially now that earlier last year, ETFs got approved, absolute paper Bitcoin and IOU, but people are like, oh, I've got exposure, like I'm gonna buy this ETF, I'm gonna buy that ETF. And it's like, man, you're not buying anything, but like they're like misled into,
Yeah.
I don't know, like big Wall Street traders. What's your thought on that, Webworthy? Like seeing what Bitcoin, how it's evolved in 10 years, where we are now with all this paper Bitcoin.
Man, I am, when the ETFs, I'm like at heart a European Bitcoiner. Like I don't want to be a status cuck that just wants America to like get a stockpile, and now like that's what like the thing. But I do like the UX is so tough. It is nice for people just to get the price appreciation. But what I do kind of consider it too is like, this is going to sound completely unrelated, but we have today me in my apartment. I am an extremely rich person to somewhere else outside of my apartment in another place. There's someone 5 miles from me in Manhattan that is so much richer than me that I can't even like fathom I can imagine what's in their house, but their day-to-day life and what they care about is so far removed above me, just as the same as other people are so far removed below me. I don't know if this is good. I just think this is like a life thing I'm observing, is Bitcoin, because it is like kind of a living organism where like we've discovered and maintain and add to, it feels a lot like time in history. Like the Amazonian tribe that exists today, they're like still the same thing they were then, but then we have these people living in Dubai that are living like aliens. Like neither of those two things really, like they are in a closed loop together, but neither of them have any effect of pulling each other in either direction. So I think it's okay that as Bitcoin grows, some people just get to a certain point and stay. And I think that sounds bad when we talk about self-custody Lightning. Like we should always try and get to self-custody, because when the app fails, they get their money back. That's what we all care about in this custody realm, is like, yes, we technically care that the keys are mine, but we mostly care that I get my money back if the thing breaks, or that if it doesn't exist tomorrow, there's no central point of control that someone can take my money. In Bitcoin, there has been like, for instance, fees are low right now.
Super
You can
low.
pay
One two
on-chain.
sats per VByte. It's crazy.
It works pretty good. I mean, granted, because the price is high, like that 1 or 2 or sat VByte is like, can be $1 or can be like kind of high. But I think it's really amazing that we've got different groups to kind of get to a place in Bitcoin, and they don't necessarily have to keep running with everyone. They can just like kind of settle in and like build the fort around this thing and make that work. And technically the ETFs are that around on-chain Bitcoin. Like as long as that exists and works well forever, we can always do this like settling up for somebody else. I don't like it. I don't have any, Bitcoin ETFs, but my wife's account that can't take money out for 60 years, I'm like, fucking buy those Bitcoin ETFs, because Beyond Meat went down 100% that she had before. But like, there's parts of it I do like, but I don't think, what I don't like about it is people are like, don't get Bitcoin, just get the ETFs. And the same thing with like self-custody Lightning. You're not using Lightning unless you're using self-custody, which I don't know. Maybe as I'm saying, I'm like, I do kind of agree, but I've spent so
You're
much
like a
time
pendulum swinging between the I agree, I don't agree, I agree.
because I guess it just depends on the person. And I spent a year a year spending self-custody Lightning, like out of my node back home in New York, in different places. And connection times were slow. I fucked up a lot of my channels, especially when the fee rates changed. So all to say, I like where some groups land and kind of stay and make it easier for some people without being like, all right, now we got to get this whole group over to this next further goal, which is good for maybe different groups. That answers your question.
No, it does. And, like, I agree that there's different, different people with different priorities and definitely different like mindsets. I've recently recorded with Gary Cardone, and he was like, as much as everybody praises self-custody, he's like, a billionaire is not going to be holding, his like 12 seat for his word. He's like that's never going to happen. He was like very like adamant on that point. So I was like, I agree on that part. It's just like, I have a feeling like a lot of people, like there's some use cases like with your wife, where she can pull out the money and buy the actual, Bitcoin and hold her keys. Like in that case, it's good. But I mean, if it's someone like, let's say, not a professional trader, but like, let's say like someone in their mid 20s, early 30s who's got like some money and he wants to deploy it, I just find that like this whole ETF like shenanigan, it's like they're like, oh, I'm going to get that. It's just easier access. It's like the easy way. And like, that's what everybody's doing. And I don't know, like we've had so many rugs in the space, especially in exchanges that you've witnessed firsthand.
Oh my God.
That like, I don't know, like, and this whole point, like Adam's famous quote, don't trust but verify. You can't verify none of this ETF, guys. Like, or even like MicroStrategy. Like they're putting these, fancy every Monday. There's a new poster from Mr. Saylor coming out. How many tens of thousands of Bitcoin they purchased, but you don't see anywhere. Now, of course, they have the reasons and security and blah blah blah. But like that goes against the ethos. Like, I don't want to trust you, man. Like, I want to verify it, and you can't. But people are still going crazy over it. So I guess, like it or not, it's the way it is. I want to jump on another topic of like the hot topic at the moment with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which everybody was expecting to be announced on day one with Trump going back into office. And then something else was announced. I don't know. It hasn't been signed into law or anything, but like this whole, I believe, I don't want to butcher it, but digital assets stockpile,
some
or
crypto fucking bullshit.
Some bullshit about
stockpile, yeah.
Whatever Garlington pulled through, like, I mean, that's just like insane. What's your thoughts on that? And before I'll let you answer that, I want to just give you quickly my take. To be honest, I'm pretty happy that the government's not stockpiling Bitcoin, but they're piling up shitcoins, which actually, like, I would rather, stack the coin instead of stacking it at astronomical levels. But what's your take on that, Parker?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Like most European Bitcoiners, I don't love the status, a government stockpiling all this. But as an American that knows we have literally no other choice, like we've fucked up our money so hard. And Americans are the last people to appreciate that, like, we fucked up the money so that they, like, for our comfort. We fucked up the whole world's money for our comfort. So I do like that we're making that choice to, like, it's either, if it's not now, it's later. So we definitely do have to do it. But I don't like David. David Sachs is the person who's like basically gonna be like
Mr. Solana Prince.
Exactly, that I don't have enough skin in the game to be in Brad Garling. I was like, they're close enough, and let's just hope that they didn't donate enough money that like their favors or whatever calls that Trump has said, like, I've used this system before, so I know how it works. Like, let's hope they aren't the calls that he probably is getting their calls, but like actually accepts them. But yeah,
who's missing from the mix with Garlington and David Sachs? We're missing Charles Hoskins.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine them three in a meeting in the White House with Trump discussing the next strategic buy?
Dude,
wow.
He's sitting on his plane, circling them like, all right, I need to try and figure out what bar they're going to be at so I can
his headset with the wires on his head, right?
Like, dude, he wants to be in that party so bad.
He does, but not swaying off too far off the topic. Like, I have another thought, which you mentioned, like a good point. Like the national debt is like in the trillions of dollars, and every few weeks or a month, like it goes up by another trillion. It's just like it's insane. But I don't know. Maybe this is my uneducated question. Maybe you know it. Like, this debt needs to be paid off to the Fed, correct? Because the government borrows from the Fed.
Technically, I think.
So if that's the case, I don't like the idea of the government buying up so much Bitcoin to then pay off the debt to a private company called the Federal Reserve, who then in the end ends up with a boatload of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And if they like
Yeah,
enacted
totally
the
agree.
Fed, fuck me, sorry for my French, but that's the last group of people I want to be holding million plus Bitcoin. So I don't know. I think Bitcoin or not, I think the monetary system needs to collapse and there needs to be a reboot. During the pandemic, there was a lot of talk with the CBDCs and, you know, like they're going to come out now, this administration saying they're going to ban it. Not that I'm for CBDCs. I'm totally against that. I hate that whole concept, but it's just something new needs to happen. Like there needs to be a clean slate because it's unsustainable. And like using this precious, like the hardest money we've ever invented and ever will invent to be spent on like paying off a debt which shouldn't be there in the first place to a private company, it doesn't sit well in my heart, you know? But like
that's a really good take. Yeah. I should not consider that.
No, nobody's mentioned that so far on X. So maybe I'll start a little conversation going to see what other people want to take that take
I think
on.
you have to, because if the Fed just has all this Bitcoin, it'd be really bad. And personally, I don't know. I kind of, as an American, I feel like if two teams want something that's a red and blue, there's like a meme in America. Someone's gonna win, but neither party's gonna. Both, no, we're all getting fucked. Like, so we're still not gonna get the thing. What I would hope, and I have no like economic background to make this an actual point or like think that this could happen. But what I would like to think could happen is us buying all this Bitcoin rebalances how much debt we have. Because for a long time, when I like going back to the early days, I always thought post 2008, we never fixed our solutions. We were going to go full debt, like death spiral. And seeing these other countries like El Salvador buying Bitcoin, they're not actually repaying the debt off, but there's this like perceived value now that if I have an El Salvadorian dollar, it's backed by Bitcoin, or even that. And I don't even think they actually have to connect at all or ever have like some swapping mechanism. But for a country to just have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, now it seems like their currency is now part of that. I couldn't imagine us, especially Trump, ever just like paying off the Fed because they're not a federal agent, like they're a corporation. We could just cancel the debt and have the Bitcoin. And I feel like if you were in a negotiating situation, if one party has you owe them all of your money and you have no money, you have no recourse. But if you owe someone $100 and now you have $100 again, the conversation between them changes because you still haven't given them the $100 yet. They got to actually be nice to you. Like,
true.
I think I will give you this now. So I kind of feel like once our chips are at a better bargaining place with the Fed, we won't have that like end all situation of the paying off and swap. We'll be like, all right, let's renegotiate our debt at these new terms now that we have this like majorly new appraised asset. And something about the gold, our gold in America, this I heard on a different podcast that I couldn't repeat as well as I'm going to try right now. The gold is priced much lower than it actually trades for. Like it's priced in our bank vaults like $36 an ounce, which is obviously 10x less. So there was something about that buying the Bitcoin and then repricing the gold would dramatically change that ratio. And to me as an American, I don't necessarily want to pay off the debt because it's a scam, but I think if the balance was even that like for every $10 of debt we have $5 worth of Bitcoin, that probably shores up a lot of like, I would think stuff, but I also don't know.
Maybe. Or maybe Trump can just end the...
I like that. Yeah. We got Ross Freed. Now let's end the Fed.
Yeah, drain the swamp, Trump. Yeah.
A quick message from our awesome partners at StampSeed. Future you is dependent on you. Don't let them down. Future you is set for life with Bitcoin, but only if you back up your seed phrase properly. No napkins, no phone notes, just StampSeed. Fireproof, waterproof, life-proof. Use BTC Story for 15% off at stampseed.com. Future you just fist bumped you. Don't mess this up. And now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. All right. I think we've dived down that very philosophical, political, financial talk. Let's steer it back to Freedom Tech and BTC Pay Server. So
Let's go.
Webworthy, tell me, how did you end up becoming one of the core contributors, and how did you even discover BTC Pay?
Man, it was a really long time, and I think my favorite things I've ever done in my life have just taken a long time to get to the place I really want to be.
Good things take time.
They really do. And back to what you're saying in that 2017 era, the ICOs and scams. Me and one of my best friends were basically trying to do like an agency for ICOs. He did photography, I did video stuff, and we worked for a bunch of startups before crypto stuff. I was always before like the word Bitcoin, I just had Bitcoin and would talk about it at these tech startups, and I was the Bitcoin guy and obviously hated. We tried to do the same model for ICOs, and we had one guy who was a VC who had like 5 different things to do. So we had like 6 of them, and of course they all went to zero. I got paid absolutely nothing for them, almost ruined my life. The worst thing I've ever done. And both me and my best friend found our own stuff that was like very me for BTC Pay. Him, he was a very successful trader and just absolutely has crushed it the last decade since then. Or not decade, but 5 or 6 years. But for me, how I got out of that was Pavlinex tweeted, have ICOs taken all of the good artists or animators? I can't remember exactly what the tweet was. And I responded, no, I would love to help you guys out. And it felt like I could be saved again, because I was always a Bitcoiner at heart, and these
It's
are
like
the
a hand
people I
of God
cared about
going down.
Yeah, I could be redeemed. So, and I was so thankful. All the ICO bullshit I've been doing the last 3 years, I knew I didn't respect, so I wasn't tweeting about it personally. I was just like a toxic maxi having fun, getting Craig Wright blocks and being pissed at people. And so I started contributing, and the first thing I did was an animation, and BTC Pay Server is a crowdfunding app inside of it. So they made a crowdfund for me, and I didn't even know what an XPub was at the time. I knew so much about like Bitcoin history and drama, but I knew so little about like the technical parts of Bitcoin. Britt Kelly, who's incredible, she's been at Strike for years now. She was one of the main contributors, kind of like a project manager with Pavlinex at the time. And she set up a crowdfund for me, and they raised 0.6 of a Bitcoin in like 2 weeks. And all I asked for, because they're like, what do you want to do this? I was like, I just need to make like $1,000 because I am like wrecked right now from all this ICO shit. And it was oversubscribed by, I think Bitcoin at the time was like 3,000. It was right after that, like the mining hash wars and like that big crash. So that was amazing. And put Bitcoin in my pocket. I made that animation, and it was amazing. It was so fun. And it took me about another year until for me to I did more like regular film jobs. And then about a year and a half later, I did another animation. And that one I bit off way too much if I can chew. The comments in the video are really funny. Some people love it, and I do love watching it now, but my character animation was really rough. So that was another crowdfund that they actually got from BitBlock Boom. That was a gift to them to do some marketing stuff. So that got me back in with everybody again. And then from there, I actually just stuck around and kept contributing. And sorry,
Yeah.
and that was probably 2021, I think. And then I started doing YouTube thumbnails and just like tutorials and small video stuff and like social media graphics. And that was like $500 a month sponsorship. And obviously, of course, all paid in Bitcoin. So I did small stuff like that for like a year, where it was just like a $500 sponsorship. And that, with the price appreciation too, was like, this job that's like paid less than minimum wage has paid me far better than the work I've had the last 2 years. I started making the documentary and using that money as like my like kind of runway. I was like, this is actually getting greedy that I'm not like spending this now. And that idea of like, all right, I'm not earning a ton. I'm going to spend my Bitcoin to stay here. and then hope it kind of comes back. That has been like the last 4 years for me that I've been lucky with the price, not lucky with the price appreciation. We know where this thing is going. That's why we fucking saving this money.
Yep.
But it has been just slowly stepped up from there, and it's all been video and marketing stuff. So I say, if you've seen a video or an animation in the last 4 years, it was probably from me. If you don't recognize Pav's or Rockstar's voice, or indeed some of the more technical stuff they've been doing, which has been really nice for me.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It shows how, like, you know, like working in the space, even if you're getting a smaller cut, but you're spending your money like wisely, in a few years it pays off way better than you doing some dreadful job today that you absolutely hate for a higher pay, which essentially you're going to spend that money on some crap, on some materialistic stuff that won't improve your life in any way. But if you'd have taken the other, you know, and contributed to the space and got a little bit less today, but you will have a lot more tomorrow, is a great example.
Yeah, and I do want to caution that. I say to people today, it's like, I really want to work in Bitcoin. I'm like, technically, any job you have, you can save money. You are working and getting Bitcoin, because there's a whole lot of other side of stuff of working in Bitcoin. And sometimes you meet your heroes and you're like, man, I was an idiot, or they were as great as I hoped they would be. So
that's true.
It comes with its own trade-offs.
That's true.
It's been amazing. I've loved every second of it.
So I want to bring up one of your projects, which you've got the poster right there behind you with "My Trust in You is Broken." We went a little bit into that story with Nicholas in the previous episode. So to whoever is listening who wants to know, where does that name of the documentary come from, go back 2 episodes and listen to that story. But from my understanding, it took quite a few years to record that, right? Like, it was an ongoing thing. It wasn't just like, oh, here we have 3 months, we'll shoot it and done. Before I let you kind of spill the beans on how that came all about and what inspired you to do it, I just wanted to say it's probably my favorite Bitcoin documentary out there. So awesome job you did on that one.
Thank you so much. That's a big compliment, because there's a plenty of documentaries now.
Yeah.
But thank you.
But they're not that human storytelling. They're all like, price went up and like all this mysterious, like Satoshi Nakamoto, and they're showing like a guy in like a silhouette
with all the numbers in the same
with all the numbers, and he's sitting in front of a computer. It's like, how many cliche, like how many times can you do that? Like, I don't know. And even some of the big production with was it not CNBC? What was that big one? The Who is Satoshi? HBO.
Yeah,
I didn't even watch that. Like, I saw some clips of it, and I'm like, I'm not wasting 1.5 hours of my life like watching that. Like, to people that have no idea what Bitcoin is, yeah, maybe that's good, but like, no way. I was like, if you want to know something good, go check out the "My Trust in You is Broken." You're gonna find that much more insightful. And so, how did that come around? What inspired you to? I guess you briefly mentioned in your previous take where you said you wanted to put some of that money that you saved into kind of putting into your work to put something out, right?
Yeah, and it's a long story, so just tell me, ask me any questions.
I'm not in a rush, so we can take it.
Awesome. So I've been doing all like the small contribution stuff of like YouTube videos, thumbnails, and actually and documentation stuff. And at the time, this was like before COVID, I owned a RE Mini. I had like a movie camera I was renting on ShareGrid to people, and it was doing great. Like, I had a mortgage on it. It was a $70,000 camera, and it would do over like double its mortgage every month. So things were ripping in New York. And honestly, that was like, I got my BTC Pay contribution, and I'd rent out my camera, and that was kind of keeping me afloat. And I also didn't have like actually I also had another gig too, the company called TrendSpider that I was doing also their YouTube stuff. So things were busy, and COVID hits and the market dies. Like, all of the rental stuff, all the production was just eviscerated. So I'm on the hook for another like 30K of this camera, and I've been paying it off since 2017. And I sold every piece of camera equipment I had. And I've been a video guy since I was 12. That was like, my whole personality has been like this video dude. And I got rid of everything because I was terrified. And I loved animation. I really do like doing technical computer stuff. If I couldn't film another minute of the rest of my life, I'd be really sad, but I love being here on the computer. So I committed to that, was like, you know what? I'm going to sell all my stuff, just do this. So a year of COVID and I would spend a lot of time with Bass Peters, who did the Lightning Trust Chain, and you may be familiar with him. And we were talking a lot, like there's got to be, like no one knows the BTC Pay story well enough. And now that it's a year or two out, I'll say Nicolas Dorier, for a certain amount of time, I think wasn't getting the respect he deserved from conferences about how much of a legendary developer he was, because he carried us through the block size wars, not necessarily as like a, I don't want to say politician. A lot of Bitcoiners had to become kind of those, like almost a politician, to explain the problem and what was really happening. And he made the solution. So I've always ascribed him to being one of the most incredible Bitcoin developers that should be like remembered. And in making this was that, like, we need to tell Nico's story and what he went through in the block size wars, because it's going to be largely forgotten very quickly. And as even now, I'm like, I might have to tell this story every 4 years in some new form, just because everyone comes into this thinking that like the biggest war is yet to come, but the one that could have been the one has already happened and been settled. So to get back on track, I had that price appreciation all this time and dying to get back into video stuff because I missed being outside with my camera. Like I legitimately was like, I just miss filming stuff. So I bought an FX30, which is, compared to what I had, a piece of shit camera, like just a joke of a camera. But it's unbelievable on YouTube. It's cheaper than the FX3. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have picked the FX3, but I'd shot full frame cameras for so many years that I wanted to shoot on something that was like, if it's my story that I'm not getting paid to film like a day rate or have a rental budget, it should be a cheap enough camera that I could film anywhere, that I like the stuff that's coming out of it. So the first thing I shot was with Rockstar. The Bitcoin conference has a free ticket for FOSS developers every year. So if you want to go to the Bitcoin conference this year, submit a FOSS ticket, and they do it on GitHub. And I can't remember how to get to it, but I got a free ticket, and I wanted to go film Rockstar there. I had met Rockstar in passing in 2019, but I didn't know who he was, or like, we didn't really meet. I was just in the same room as him. So I'm like going to meet my hero Rockstar after like contributing to him in BTC Pay Server and like now knowing his lore and like looking up to him for so long. So I'm thinking, man, if I could get just like 1 minute to film with him, this would be so cool. Maybe I can make something. In the first like 30 seconds we're filming together, he walks up to like Michael Tidwell or some other Bitcoiner and goes, "Oh man, look at this animation he just made." Shows him my animation, and I'm like, "Fuck yeah, he likes it." And then he goes, "This guy's making the BTC Pay Server documentary. It's going to be sick." Excuse me. So I had been talking about like, I hope I could do this. I didn't even ask him. When he saw me doing the thing in the place with the thing, he's like, "You're doing this. This is what we're doing." So for the next like 6 months, it was me being like, "Rockstar, that was really fun what we just shot, but I'm gonna need a little more time. I'm gonna need a little more time." It was like I'd kind of make these like little like those, which I found out Europeans call them after movies, which I didn't know. Like after these conferences, like these little clips. So those were half to show what the documentary would be like, plus also just like tease out some excitement. And Rockstar was just dying to see some stuff. And it worked so good as promotion all the way to like kind of have these pieces, these little 1 or 2 minute.
We left it off with doing the small clips, and Rockstar was dying to see it.
Yeah, it's like, all right, the next thing, we're gonna do at this conference. I'm like, not quite. And then what worked out so great was in Riga, 2023. Yeah, I was in Riga. BTC Pay Day in 2023. Jester, who contributes to the Bitcoin Film Fest, was there in the audience. And as I was giving my first ever talk, like presentation on like what the documentary will be and the story of why it's important, he's like, "You should bring us to the Bitcoin Film Fest." So that totally happened like spontaneously there. And that also gave me a very good way to say, all right, Rockstar, it's not done until that date. And it helped me also have just a date to work backwards from, because the story is so complicated and still evolving that like I still could be filming and telling it now. And there's a piece of me that wishes that I added more and didn't do that as the deadline. But I'm very happy at that as the film festival went and that it is completed. It was a great deadline to have.
Not just that, you won it as the best picture.
Yeah, that helps. I feel bad because it didn't play super smoothly on site, which happens, but there was a great experience that people watched online and people could vote online. So
Nice.
that, I think that really helped, that a lot of people
And
got the actual experience or the
that's
smooth
true.
experience.
And how was it over in? It was in Warsaw, right? The film festival. Like, how did it feel after like doing this project for so long and then finally seeing you on the big screen and like everyone's like super happy about it? Like, what was that feeling like, if you can describe it?
It was very surreal. I learned so many lessons that weekend. And I would say this is true to a lot of conferences. They're hard to do. And streaming live and playing stuff is like a super hard problem to do. And basically they had the coolest location ever. The cinema was beautiful. So like the experience of being there was great, but it was definitely a big project for them. And some stuff was better than the others. And I would say this about the Bitcoin conference too. You know, sometimes you bite off way too much. Some stuff they did a little bit there, but what I was so happy about was I had a lot of European Bitcoiners there that knew the story, who knew me, and no matter how it played there, we're just so happy to be a part of it and just have it done and someone telling the story that they cared about. So I was so supported that I had such a good time with that and the people, that it was incredible. And the place in Warsaw was fucking awesome. It was beautiful.
I saw. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but I was following online, and it gave me a nice big FOMO of like missing out with everything. And it was like perfect. Like it was right about the halving time, right? So like,
yeah, that
talk
was really
about
cool.
like what a time to do it.
Yeah.
Are you going to be attending next year's one?
Maybe. I don't know. I think this past year I got married in August.
Oh, congrats.
A lot of the stress leading up to that was me not doing enough for my wedding. So now that I have like a year free, it seems strange. I'm like, maybe it could be really fun to do. And I might have some stuff for it. So it kind of depends it really depends if I have something that is coming out then that I could like without changing my life around, because I really had to like change my whole life around finishing that on time. I'm trying to be better about that for my wife, that I'm not like reorienting my whole life around someone else's event.
Yeah.
It mostly figured out like, all right, when it's finished, I'll release it, and then wait, and when something's there, I'll put it out. And that's kind of what I learned about like the New York premiere. Premieres are tough, just like personally, you care so much about it at the time. I think premiering at a film festival for anyone is tough, and I should have known that lesson just like before. But it was my first film fest, so I learned a lot, and it was great. But definitely premiering, if I had to give anyone any recommendations, any filmmakers or any video people, premiering something at a contest is definitely makes it more difficult.
Nice. Well, and any listeners that want to be releasing something and doing a premiere, you heard it there first from Webworthy. Take your time and don't bite off with something that you can't
Yes, similar to an app release, maybe don't release the thing at the conference.
True.
Do a soft
break it.
Yeah, do a soft launch first.
So I guess now going to the second one, which came out more recently, the Paid in Bitcoin, which was solely focused on last year's Nashville event. I think it super nicely lays out, and Rockstar was the main character of the doc.
Yeah.
It kind of shows exactly as you said, like people don't understand how much stuff goes in the background for putting down a conference. And in the Paid in Bitcoin, it's just focusing on BTC Pay integrations with, I believe it was 45 merchants that had it there. But imagine everything else that is included in setting up a conference. It's like one of the most stressful things that you could do. But tell me a little bit about Paid in Bitcoin, and maybe you can take it further to how was the Nashville experience for you last year?
Me too. Dude, it was so much fun. Michael Markle is like, we have Rockstar Dev, and then Michael Markle is also a rock star within Bitcoin Magazine. He is incredible. And once I'd finished, my trusting is broken. Excuse me.
No worries.
I thought it'd be really fun to like secretly try and finish another documentary within the year. Mostly because talking to people at the film fest, they were all talking about like how they were going to like promote their movies in the next year of distribution, all this stuff. And I'm like, this is Bitcoin. No one cares about us. And I definitely don't care about that. Like, I want to just keep making stuff and telling the stories, and hopefully it's free for people to watch. And the conference was like maybe 2 weeks out. Michael is like on Telegram, like, man, this is going to be fucking crazy. Like, there's really big stuff happening. And then all like presidential stuff starting to happen. And Rockstar is like, let's make these bolt cards. And man, I got the 2 bolt cards right here. Actually, I got to back up the story a little bit. Speaking of, it was Riga. You know that Bitcoin bar basement in Riga?
No, I've heard of it. I haven't been to Riga myself, so I don't know it, but I know it through, there was a big party this last Riga August where Knut was launching his book, and Rockstar was throwing down the party, giving free drinks. So that's how I heard about the basement bar, but I haven't been to it yet.
If you go to Riga, you got to go there, man. It's a great little spot, and they have the coolest like Bitcoin, almost looks like the underground tube logo.
Nice.
But we were there 2 days before the conference started. Somebody, all in I think we all had BTC Pay shirts on. For some reason, we were going to visit the BTC Pay Day venue, and we were trying to look like we were together. And someone walked in with a BTC Pay Server shirt who looked American. We're like, what the fuck? He said, I came here to just meet you guys to come to BTC Pay Server Day. And this is before the conference started. We're like, you're lying. Like, there's no way this is what you did. Turns out he's been using BTC Pay Server for years. This is stories about Michael Markle. He had a dirt track racing team in Ohio that he did a crowdfunding campaign for, and use BTC Pay Server as a crowdfunding tool. So he actually has been a user for a long time and is living in Puerto Rico. And his vision was, I'm going to get a job at Bitcoin Magazine and the Bitcoin conference and put together BTC Pay Server to do the payments for Nashville, and came to Riga with that idea to put this together, and fucking did it. So in hindsight, as I'm telling the story, I wish I added that in the documentary, because that would have been much cooler to explain. There was like a lot happening before then. So all these
months, I thought he was just another employee of Bitcoin Magazine. Like, to be honest, I've never come across him before the doc. So yeah, maybe. But anyways, at least they can hear it here now.
Low profile. No, he really like, and dude, he's so deep in that organization now. It's unbelievable. And I can't wait to tell the stories that like we just did our first shoot. Actually, I'm going to say that. I'll come back to that. Yeah, so it started all the way back in Riga, and he put this together, and Rockstar and him did all the POS for Nashville. And it was an insane lead up of like getting like this approval, because if you can imagine, IBEX previously sponsored was worth something.
Yeah.
BitPay has sponsored and it was worth something. So like that's like 50 to 100 grand that like they're going to forgive and not take to do this free open source choice. And I think it's great for their brand, because I think a lot of people don't love the ordinal stuff, and I don't think they even care about it that much. And the more time I spend with that group, the more I'm like, they are fucking amazing. And the critiques from afar are just like what's easiest to shit on, but there's so much more happening in there. And that was kind of what I wanted to show, is just how tedious it is to do this outside of Bitcoin. Like, the Bitcoin part is there and works. It's Does the Wi-Fi work? Is it too sunny on the screen? Is the device still charged? Is it a 17-year-old that's on their phone the whole time that didn't listen during onboarding, that doesn't care at all, and it's their parent that's the actual Bitcoiner that like wanted to do this whole thing? So there's a lot of like life like stuff that isn't Bitcoin that I wanted to show in that.
Yeah, well, I guess out of all of that, like Bitcoin was like the Bitcoin network is the only thing that was kind of TikTok next block, was like the blocks were just coming through. It's like the technical stuff, and seeing in the documentary, it's like getting everything set up, but then it's like, oh, there's no Wi-Fi. Oh, we need the hotspot. Oh, like running here or there, like, and it's just how much effort like goes into this, and it's like 40 merchants, which is definitely not one little corner with like 4 pop-up shops. They're like everywhere, from the cafe at the entrance to the expo hall. But yeah, what about the event itself? Like, it was a massive event. I don't know if it was the biggest, but probably like it probably was to date the biggest Bitcoin conference ever. No,
I would think, especially with like the presidential, like the line to get into the security room wrapped around the entire conference place, and people would just go there just to get in line for the whole day. It was bizarre to see.
crazy.
And they did such an amazing job in spending more time with them. What I have noticed, like we all say, like Bitcoin's, all the stuff's inevitable. It's all going to happen. Everyone's going to become a Bitcoiner. People fucking hate us. Like, people don't like us as Bitcoiners because we stuck to our guns. We were successful. And now they have to like reconcile, like, was I wrong and they're right? And we're aesthetically unpleasing to them because we're Bitcoin bros or whatever label they want to put on us. And they are actively pushing this massive stone up this hill to get over the hump that, like, because Bitcoin to me, like, we can imagine like the gold market cap, or like this, if we were underpinning the entire stock market and all set, like that's a certain market cap. But what's the market cap of cool? Like, being a cool thing, like that's an infinite market cap, something that like is aesthetically something that young people have to have. There definitely is a market cap on that. Like, someone could do those numbers, but I want to make stuff, and that paid in Bitcoin is a little bit of that like lifestyle-y part where it's like not the technical story and conflict stuff, but it feels like they're making Bitcoin cool. So a lot of people may be like, that's actually the opposite. I think they're making Bitcoin extremely uncool. But there were a lot of people in that whale room that are not Bitcoiners. And I don't like that part, but I do like that once a year, all these dickheads got to pretend to be. And that's funny to me. They're like, well, this week I'm really into it. It's like, well, you could be the whole year, but sure, I'm glad you're here this week. Like Martin, I was sitting with Martin Shkreli. He actually maybe crushed it on this MicroStrategy short, and I was hating him in the process. But people like that like do kind of make fun of us when it's their time. They're back there in the room like, well, I can't get close enough to Michael Saylor. Like, so I love seeing that these, and especially all the shitcoin side events that are like leeches onto this thing. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna keep rambling. And the Rasmar, like these fucking KOL soul, dude. These losers that are like the meme Solana kids are in the back of the line at the Bitcoin conference. They got no clout. They got no one's nothing, and they're just
No
sitting there.
VIP access.
No, and I love watching that. And it's in devs who have 300 followers on Twitter and a net worth that guy would laugh at. Come to the front. You can walk through the line because you have the industry pass thing. So they do a very good job making Bitcoiners, even though like they have a joke every year. What's the reason why people can say they're not coming? Oh, I'm not coming because the American stockpile is actually a crypto stockpile. Fuck them. They didn't do it right. Like every year, some Bitcoiners, they don't have to, but come up with some reason they're choosing not to go. And I had never heard that, but I have observed it. And when David Bailey said to me, I was like, yeah, that's actually so funny. People have to like think of a reason not to come because it's that important. So it was so cool. I loved it.
Yeah, and to bring it up, I mentioned this a lot of times on the pod with many of the guests, but like just the fact of attending these conferences, Bitcoin only conferences, just to be clear, not crypto conferences, but Bitcoin only conferences is like vital. Like if you're a Bitcoiner and you haven't been to one, like you're doing it wrong. Like Bitcoin's not all about Twitter and Nostr. It's about like going out, meeting these people, meeting the people you look up to, just like I bumped into Webworthy in Prague and many other people that I look up to. And it just like, it's surreal, like in the space, it doesn't feel like, you can't really talk to anyone. Well, maybe not Sater, but like, to be honest, personally, I couldn't give two fucks about Sater. Like he's in his own world.
He's got his
But
own
like,
life.
the whoever, like I was speaking to Parker Lewis, like, I mean, just like anyone in the space, Tour de Meester, like anyone you want, you can just come up and have a chat with them. And it's like, you're like pinching yourself. You're like, is this real? Is it not? And like, just the fact that, you can have these interactions and you meet so many cool people. It's not just about meeting the A-list Bitcoiners, but like in the expo hall at Prague, like I keep talking about Prague, but like to me, that was like
It
the
was
best
so
event I
good.
ever went to.
Yeah.
It was big, but like it felt like very cozy and like everybody, it was kind of like a family regathering of like cousins that you've never met. And you're like, oh,
Yeah, it's
like,
actually such a good way to put it.
right? It's like, hey man, like how you been? This is not like people that you've been chatting with online or like people that you've been following. And just to me, like BTC, like maybe just to give a quick shout out, like to Matthias and Martin, like what they did. And now I'm super excited for the next one, which is coming up in about 5 months or so. So this June again. By the way, anyone listening, you gotta come this summer to Prague. Use BTC. I was gonna say BTC Pay Server, BTC Story for 10% discount on the ticket. There's a little plug, but no, jokes aside, you should definitely come because it's an incredible experience. And Prague as a city, like it's so historic, like so many things to see. This is not Dubai, a desert with glass and a metal skyscraper. It's like there's actual history in it. And if not Prague, there's many other conferences that BTC magazine is doing now all over the world. There's the Asia one, the MENA one, if you like the desert, if that's your cup of tea. Or of course the US ones, the European one in Amsterdam. That was actually the first one I went to. A BTC magazine was in Amsterdam in October 2023. And meeting people like Adam Back and Seed from Seed Signer, like people, like it was surreal to me, and everybody was open to talking again. This is the openness of the Bitcoin space. It's not like the corporate world, or I don't know how the shitcoinery conferences go, but like everyone's like stuck up and like there's security and stuff around. Like here, it's so open. It's like you feel like a mini cypherpunk, and then you're like just going around exploring things. And I love the merch that's there, like the hat, the artwork especially. Like, I don't know how other conferences like in the other crypto space are, but Bitcoin and art galleries, my favorite.
Just to add on to that, man, I have worked other video stuff for conferences, and we weren't there, but I think we are the top tier best, other than maybe some gaming stuff. I feel like we are the best conference, and I would say maybe CES, but like we're on that like world stage of the few and best conferences. And I had this realization during my wedding. I was sitting in like the green room waiting, and I was by myself, and obviously my best men, my best friends and people I've been close to for years. And I was like, I've seen my Bitcoiners that I know by their pseudonym more times this year in person, or over the last 2 years, or even 3 years, than I've seen my 3 best men in person. And one of them lives like 10 minutes down the street. And we all hang out in Discord. So we see each other every day and talk to each other every day. But the amount of personal time I had with these Bitcoiners made me realize, like, God, I know these people so well, and I see them 4 or 5 times a year. And a piece of me wished I had some at my wedding that day, just because I've been so close to it and had such good experiences at all these conferences over the last 2 years.
Oh, and imagine all the good experiences that are yet to happen, like Webworthy, we're young fellas. We have a long way to go. As I like to joke, like Bitcoin's a teenage boy or a teenage girl, whichever sex you want to swing to. Like
Yeah.
it's only maturing, like sometimes people expect too much from a 16-year-old. It's like, oh, why is he not driving a car? Oh, why is he not, like, I don't know, managing a company? It's like, whoa, chill, man. He's 16 years old, like, what do you expect? So like, give it another 5 years, let Bitcoin turn 21. because, you know, us Bitcoiners like the
We gotta
21
hit
number.
21.
And poosh, like in 5 years, who knows? No one's got the crystal ball, but the way things are going, oh my, it's gonna swallow the whole world in it. And if you like it or not, like if you're sitting on the sidelines and waiting to time the market for the big dip, forget about it, man. You're gonna be washed out. Like the dip's long gone. Like you just gotta go in now. You know, a lot of people ask me, as I'm sure they ask you, Webworthy, like, when's a good time to buy Bitcoin? You know, like
Oh my
I joke
God.
about,
Yeah.
I tell them, well, the first good time to buy Bitcoin was 10 years ago, right? Or if you don't want to stretch it that back, it was probably like a year ago. And the second best time is now. Like forget like timing the market. And at the end of the day, like buying Bitcoin, it's not about like timing your entry and your exit. It's a one-way road, brother. Like you enter and you never go back. Sell it for a profit. Like sell it for what? For fiat paper? No, man. Like you just keep on stacking. And every time there's a dip, you just keep on adding. You know when you know you're a true Bitcoiner when the price is crashing and you're happy. You're like, yeah, man, I'm getting like checks steep. It's not like lettuce hands. Oh my God. So bought the peak and then selling it as it's crashing. But everybody needs to go through that and learn it themselves.
And to tell, I really want to tell you, living here in New York for so long, you know, as Bitcoiners, the people in your life, your parents, your friends, your family, they all know what your interest is, and we'll be happy to kind of throw you like, oh, how's Bitcoin doing? Or, oh, how's Bitcoin doing? You know, every so often. I've been getting that here for a long time. And of course,
Thanksgiving dinners, did you get asked, how's the Bitcoin doing?
well, this year
How
I
was
was
this
like,
Thanksgiving?
didn't say, dude, when they don't say it, I'm like,
No
we got
word.
more time. We're good. We're good. We got more. And this last one, they didn't say it. I was like, whew, let's go. And man, the orange man, like in the orange coin, I am a leper in New York City now. And it's fucking crazy. So I just, how much I've said a couple times, they hate us. They hate us. And I mean, as like liberal Americans, what I have started saying is when someone is saying like, oh, Bitcoin's going down, what do you, I get paid in Bitcoin. So I'm like, I hope it goes to 5K this month because that would be really sick for me. Like, I'll take all that Bitcoin. And the same, obviously, going up, things are good. But when someone asks me now, and I've been getting more so, how much Bitcoin do you have? I didn't get for a long time, but now recently has like, and I think when people ask that, they don't really want to know. They want to know the ratio that you trust it. Like, is all of your money in Bitcoin? So now I just say to them, I don't have dollars and I'm not going back. And they look at me like,
What?
like, are so confused. And I want to say this to any American that's listening and doesn't know how to use Bitcoin as your medium of exchange in America, because obviously I can't buy shit with Bitcoin here other than PubKey and Safari and PubKey. Go check both those out if you're in New York. I get paid to Cash App in Bitcoin, and I have a Chase credit card. I can pay off my Chase credit card from selling Bitcoin in Cash App. And about maybe 6 months to a year ago, something changed in Cash App that they became, or Sutton Bank, whichever is their banking provider, Chase recognized them as a checking account. So now the meme in our house is I just have $42. Like I'm the richest I've ever been and I have $42. And I say that all the time, especially if I had a couple of drinks. I'm like, fuck yeah, put it on my tab. Yeah, I'm paying it off. I don't give a shit. And they're like, you don't, I'm like, yeah, I don't have any money. It's great. I'll pay for it. And it just like confuses them. So now I don't even tell them to buy Bitcoin or what to do with it. I just make my life look aesthetically better to them because that's all they can really perceive without like, you know, like trying to impress the Joneses of like buying crazy nice cars and shit. Like I got a nice car, but me and my wife have a nice car. Technically it's hers. So I bought it for her. And that shit affects people. So I do love the meme of like how many holes do you have in your boxers? Like my socks have holes and I'm like, I am definitely still that Bitcoiner. But in the last year or two, and Rockstar has really kind of helped me see this light. Like Rockstar has got his Louboutins on, he's got his red bottoms. Like the dude looks sick.
Sick, yeah.
And I think as we go through this next appreciation, flex a little bit. Like, I don't think that's,
YOLO, you only live once, right? You're not going to be stacking, taking it to the
yeah.
grave.
And I've lived in such a famine mindset my whole life because I was a broke artist that like I'm so bad at spending money that like this last camera, when I bought my $70,000 camera, all the money I had could afford me the price of it, and instead I got a loan and didn't sell any Bitcoin, and it wrecked me. The last cameras I've bought, I could buy 50 of that camera, and I can barely get myself to buy just one of them because I've been so ingrained in not spending. If you have been that person for a long time, I would say, and you can't convince people around in your life. I'm sorry, I'm rambling for a second, but
No, go for it.
something else I told somebody recently about how to convince somebody to get into Bitcoin is stop fucking telling them to buy Bitcoin and take them on a vacation. If you can't take them on a vacation, you have not done well enough in Bitcoin to be telling someone what they should do with their money. And if you can, take them on the vacation, get a couple drinks in them, and start talking about it. And I guarantee you, before you get to the second drink, they'll start asking you about your life. And of course, if you're buying someone a vacation, it's probably your close friend they care about, but they will start asking you questions they didn't ask before. They're like, man, forcing someone to try and make their life better is tough. But if they can see that your life has changed in a much better way, and people can really only imagine so much of like, and same thing, even simpler, don't buy them a vacation, just go out and take them out to dinner. Imagine not splitting the bill with them. Why can you afford 3 beers that they drink, so now you're paying for 6?
And a nice steak. Take him to a steakhouse as a true Bitcoiner would.
Yeah, exactly. That affects them. They will remember that shit because they'll be like, man, I just got back from this crazy dinner I didn't pay for. That feels pretty good.
That's super good. I love that idea. And it never crossed my mind. Like, to be honest, I'm also like, I'm kind of done with trying to get everyone, trying to plant the orange seed. Like when I go out to a restaurant or like my barber or like wherever, I slide in when it comes to pay, I go, oh, like when they go cash a card, I go Bitcoin, and they're like, ha ha ha. And I'm like, oh, not yet. And it's like you eventually see it like going like a few years ago, it was like Bitcoin, what? No, well, no Bitcoin. Now it's like, yeah, kind of soon. But like
Entertaining it.
I'm done with like trying to get everyone to understand it. Like if someone has questions or like wants my help, more than happy to sit down and take you on a rabbit hole journey with Gigi about why Bitcoin should be important to you. But like stuffing it down people's throats, like it does the opposite. That like repels them from going. But this, what you just like ruled out, like either a vacation or if you don't want to go that crazy, if you just want to take them out for a nice dinner, show them a good time and pay for the whole tab, yeah, that's like an excellent way of like, I can imagine like this friend going home and thinking like, shit, like maybe I should reevaluate like what I'm doing with my savings account and everything. So that was a good tip. I hope some listeners can take that on and put it into practice.
Get some good steaks out of that.
True. I want to touch upon also on like the New York scene with Bitcoin, which has essentially been very different from when you started your journey. But from what I'm sensing, as you said, like people don't seem to like Bitcoiners because they're like, well, either we got it wrong or like we're just like dumbasses for not looking into it. Apart from, you mentioned, of course, everybody knows PubKey. Safari, I'm not familiar with what Safari is, but like apart from that, is there like a vibrant Bitcoin scene in New York at the moment, or it's like very hush hush?
And it's kind of siloed. So like PubKey is amazing and you should go there and spend your Bitcoin. There was a year or two when it was just a Bitcoin bar that you couldn't spend Bitcoin. And I love drinking with Bitcoiners at conferences, but I'm the last person that's going to go sit at a bar. So that wasn't a place that I would go spend a lot of time. I've had great times there and the meetups there are fucking awesome. So that scene is the best Bitcoin in New York thing. And it's really like in the last probably year and a half, it's like feels like a mini conference every week. And the groups there are small, like it's, 20 or 30 people, but it's amazing. But it's just when I say siloed, so that's like its own thing. And let's say a lot of like Gemini and mining companies will do corporate events there. It's like American Bitcoiners plus people that kind of work in the larger Bitcoin industry. Me and Avi walk in there, and in a European conference, me and Avi Barrow were like, oh, we're like recognized, fun, like fuck yeah, we're somebody. We walk in there and like, no, everyone's like, who's the guy with a hat? It's not, but I love Daniel and Thomas there, and it's unbelievable. So, I mean, it's very much its own Bitcoin scene. That's incredible. It's kind of separate from like our general Bitcoin European or Bitcoin Twitter. Safari is really just one guy who is a Bitcoiner who has a restaurant that accepts Bitcoin. It's a great Somali restaurant. I actually had never been, and I've done a project with him that hopefully will come out soon. And that he does the Harlem Bitcoin meetup there. So sorry, I was going to say it's a little siloed. The Harlem Bitcoin meetup would be definitely African focused, and I think a little bit of an older crowd. It would be like a little more mom and pop, and like people who just want to understand how to use Bitcoin, where like PubKey's like Lightning Thursdays, like Evan Kalutis is talking about whatever new spec just happened.
Nice.
And otherwise, everyone hates us.
And apart from that, you like, what's your personal take? Kind of like, are you a little bit disappointed that like Bitcoin hasn't been like adopted like as much as it should have been, like specifically maybe for New York, because we can't really talk about the globe and who knows what's happening everywhere, right?
Fucked us. I think there would be way more. The only, like, there was definitely a lot of like successful regulation that stifled Bitcoin adoption, and that BitLicense was the most successful of them all. And because there was like there was like the Bitcoin, not trading floor, but I can't remember his name, but he had like a fucking, almost like a trading pit style Bitcoin auction that operated like open air style in 2013 or something that got shut down. But yeah, that killed so much of that here. The only place you see Bitcoin, and it's just, the people that are my wife's friends we're going out with don't go to these places, but vape shops, every fucking vape shop has an ATM with a Bitcoin logo that says buy and sell here. And it's like 15% marked up. Like I've seen like DK prices on these things, like stupid high. And it took me, like when I first moved to New York, even in 2016, they had these ATMs, and because I was looking at a BTC map, like, oh, we're in Brooklyn, there's got to be someplace. The only place was ATMs, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, who's actually going to buy this crazy marked up Bitcoin? Is this someone who's using this in a certain place that they're just shipping stuff to their house? So like that kind of makes sense. But that's sort of mean it's aesthetically unpleasing, and I've noticed this in this election this last year. I hated Trump in 2016. This time around, much more open. And as I'm like learning more about like conservative stuff that I hated my whole life, my wife and I, she's still very liberal. We're like explaining, like, she's telling me what Trump's doing. I'm like, that's the conspiracy. Like, that's actually not real and happening at all. And then I'm saying something to her that Kamala's doing. She's like, that's actually conspiracy. Like, that's not happening at all. So like, we have these like very aesthetic things. Like some young people would like some conservative ideals if they were presented in a different package. Like they might want a protected border if Kamala was saying it in a way that also said, and people are treated well if they do whatever. So I think now, because the right has kind of accepted us much sooner than anybody else, we're aesthetically, or I'm aesthetically to them now just a right-wing Bitcoiner. And it's crazy that like Bitcoin to me is just one giant personal responsibility project. It's like you are personally responsible for everything if you hold your own keys, and that's, your future or your demise. And I feel like that is kind of the conservative new idea of like just like this personal responsibility, and people don't love that here, or I don't even know here, but I just mean like
anywhere.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to like accept it all might be my fault.
Yeah, but people should be a little bit more responsible now. Like maybe this is an extreme where like
I agree.
You fuck up and like done, like all your money's gone, like poof, like, vanished. But then again, you should have prepared better. You shouldn't have, as I funnily put, I've been recently sponsored by StampSeed, and I do their promo with saying, basically, don't treat your seed phrase as a napkin in your sock drawer. Like people usually just write down their seed phrase on like a little cardboard thing, and then like the hardware wallet's lost, and then it's like scrapping. Oh my god, where's that piece of paper? But like, if you have it distributed geographically in different places, like it takes a little bit of work, and it's not like it's a new concept. Like it's very unfamiliar because we're all raised with like using a bank account where we keep everything there. Like we can always go there, get it. We don't have to remember nothing. And largely to a lot of things, even like emails or like logins to website, it's like, oh, like I lost my password, just click that magic button, forgot password, and I suddenly get it back. And we're kind of this domesticated creatures where it's like everything's just done for us. And then like Bitcoin comes in, it's like, hey, like you either take this shit serious, or you're gonna be living in the street. And it's like, whoo, no, man, like maybe this is not for me, like too much responsibility. But responsibility is good. So I think the argument could swing both ways, but I'm more leaning on the people should be more responsible. And if people are more responsible, at the end of the day, it's 12 words, man. If you can't keep 12 words, you're not keeping an index of, I don't know what stored in your brain. Like it's just 12 words. And if you can't keep that safe, well, God help you, man. Like, how are you going to be responsible with raising like a family and everything? Like there's so many harder things. Like I've got 2 young daughters, and like it takes a lot more responsibility than keeping 12 words safe than that, like, and people do it all over the world every day. So the argument of too much responsibility, I don't know, man. It's about like, it's more about Jack recently, Mollers, he not tweeted, he posted on Nostr last night. He was talking about discipline. He talked about discipline, how people should be more disciplined. And it's about, if you want to achieve greatness, if you want to be a good person, a good husband, a good business partner, it's all about discipline. And I think discipline is this one key thing that's really missing in modern society, where people just don't care. Like they do their own thing, and who cares about respect and everything. And then like Bitcoin comes in as this like thing that's going to change you forever, because it's not like you don't change Bitcoin changes you. But I guess we'll see. Once again, I like to reflect, zoom out, look at the macro and say, this is a 16-year-old technology, not a 60 or 600-year technology. So like, we're still so early. Yeah. Forget what the price is. Okay. 1 million. It's irrelevant. Like this is going to go up forever. And I guess we're still so early. Like people like you who entered like a decade ago, like, my God, you guys were like, don't feel all this... feel wise, but like, I mean, it's just like, it feels like so long, but like there's still yet so much to come on. When people, do this argument, like, where's the Bitcoin adoption? Man, it's happening. And I want to swing it. Probably this will be one of the last questions. Like, how do you see the global adoption happening? Are you happy with how things are rolling out? Would you want it to be sped up? Is it going too fast? I don't think it's going too fast, but like, what's your take on kind of people just adopting Bitcoin as their freedom tool?
Right. Well, this kind of adds on to just what you were saying. The responsibility of someone having to step outside of their comfort zone and try something new. When I say they hate us, I don't necessarily mean that they like hate what we represent or stand for. I think them feeling like they have to change and take time to learn something, it blows my mind how much people avoid discomfort of just like trying a new thing and being excited about it. And it makes sense, because when you're younger, it's like fun to be trying new stuff. And like the story I said of what got me into it is like, I was looking for trouble. Like I was looking for new stuff. And I think people hit a certain age and they're just like, I need to defend what's been, instead of like imagining something better. And for the global adoption, I think about that a lot, because a lot of people are like disappointed that like John Carvalho, or like someone who's like, this UX is so bad, this is why we're not as far as, or no, not as big as we should be. And I think it's a shit take. It just is. And I think if this was a company, if Bitcoin was a company with shareholders and objectives, we could say, yes, we missed the mark by 10 years. But it's not any of those things. And I feel the same way about Nostr. Like I do think Nostr will eat the entire internet and like re-architect almost everything. But because there isn't a like group of shareholders or state, like a board that will do the most insidious shit to make sure that their thing is funded and gets to the front of the whole world with PR groups and whatever. Like it's just a different path, and it's a much better path. And kind of like what I said, where if like in this like long like path we're going on, some people will take the off, like just the on-chain path. I'm like, I don't need Lightning. Like I am a hedge fund that, or not even hedge fund, want to be a Bitcoin bank for people. So I'm just working on chain. Like we don't need to bring everyone over into every piece of Bitcoin. And it's just going to take forever. And I've honestly accepted probably like 4 years ago that America would hate Bitcoin forever. We would definitely never have a Bitcoin president. And the only adoption we would actually get in America is apps like Venmo and PayPal seeing that they could have instant settlement within themselves. And I always imagine we could always spend Bitcoin all over the world. I'm just imagining America having the world reserve currency should not embrace this thing and should do everything in their power to fight against it. That would, in my head, was how they would win would be like, the rest of the world can have their Bitcoin and pay it as they want to, but we're just going to accept it as this like internal settlement system. And I don't like that, but I just think, I can't affect other people's choices other than like the stories I tell and hope that has some effect on them. But it'd be like getting I was really, really frustrated about America bombing Syria. I can still be mad at it, but the amount of anger and time I spend in my head thinking about it doesn't change the fact that it happened or stop it from happening again. So I'd rather focus on like the pieces of adoption that I can touch and help make them make sense. And I don't let how long it has taken our adoption bother me, because I mean, Lightning payments are so much better than credit card payments online. And I love streaming to my friends and showing them do a payment. And I can't wait till the whole internet is like that. But it's so good to me that I don't need it to be everywhere tomorrow. Like I know we'll get there, and I'm happy to be one of the people that like gets to make that reality more true eventually. But to answer your question, I do not let it bother me, because it can just bring you an endless amount of sadness and just like rattling the cage of like, this should be more than it is. And if you apply that outside of Bitcoin, like you wouldn't feel the same way, or you would, feel like that doesn't make sense.
I like that. Basically, to TLDR, don't be like John. Don't be crying over it.
And honestly, to John, if I used your shit, John, I would be much happier to take your points. But I tried to use the BitKit and it didn't work. So,
but no, I mean, I totally agree with you on that one. At the end of the day, like even today, most places in the world, most merchants, they don't accept Bitcoin, but you can still live on your own Bitcoin standard. You don't have to wait for this magical moment of Bitcoin hyperinization where like everybody's accepting Bitcoin and everybody's like, ooh, like send me sats. Like maybe we will get there someday, maybe we won't. But the point is, we live in the moment right now. And with so many services such as Bitrefill and like there's numerous of them. By the way, no association with Bitrefill, but like I know a lot of close friends that live on Bitrefill. They get paid in Bitcoin and then use it for gift cards and other, as you said, Cash App, Strike. There's so many, or Fold that's been really big. Like you can do most things that I understand today in the US by using having a Fold account.
Great, yeah. Honestly, like, if you're not in New York City, you have so many great tools like that.
Yeah. So you don't need to see that magical Bitcoin accepted sticker on the window, even though it would be nice, but still like you can live today on a Bitcoin standard if you want to. So there's no waiting. It's all down to you. Do you want to? Do you have the cojones to do it? Because when the market dumps by like 50% and you're all in Bitcoin, and you just started it recently, you're like having a mini seizure, heart attack. Like, my God, like I fucked up. But if you've gone through at least one cycle, then like you see that and you're kind of, I'm sure you're the same, Webworthy. You're kind of numb to the price. You're like, oh, it dips, like whatever. Like it doesn't
Exactly.
really matter. Like
I look
it's appreciated
forward
so
to
much more than
it.
any
Yeah.
dip.
Every 4 years, I'm like, I can't wait for my whole family to think I'm an idiot again.
It's an over happening cycle. But yeah, I guess to sum it up, I think we've hit some interesting points on this one. We heard how the creative process behind, personally, my favorite documentaries came around, and a more of a humanitarian, philosophical take on where we are, and essentially where we're going. With no price predictions, there's no thumbnail. Bitcoin going to be $1 million by end of year. This is more about get your life, get your shit together, and start living the right way and enjoying the moment, which I think was something that we also touched upon and something that Rockstar kind of influenced into you. And I think more people, maybe that'll be my last rant, like people should, like, Bitcoin is there to be spent to be giving you a better lifestyle than you had before. I'm not of a belief of, oh, stack sats and never spend them. No, what's the point? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, my father has a saying. He says, you enter this world butt naked, you leave this world butt naked. You're not taking no sats, no gold watches, no nothing. So like, you got
Yeah.
this time here, make the most of it. That being said, that doesn't mean Bitcoin pumps and you go buy a Lambo. It means take your families on
Exactly.
vacations, buy the things that you really want to. Get some sick ass Bitcoin art collectibles if you want to, because that means something to you. And I'm not talking about the NFTs or the ordinals. I'm talking about physical art, supporting other artists, and keeping something that gives you unconditional value. So yeah, basically, I just want to tell people to go out and live their lives that they want to live, and this is what Bitcoin gives you. And the last thing is, stack sats, stack time. The more sats you have, the more control you have over your time, because that's one thing we all share in common. To do the full circle, Webworthy, as you said in the beginning, the example with, you know, you're much richer than some people in New York, but then you go 5 miles down to Manhattan, and you're like, there's people in
I'm
a
bored.
different stratosphere.
Yeah.
But everybody shares one thing, and that's time. No matter how much money you have in your cold storage or your shitty bank account, there's 24 hours in a day and there's 365 days. So the one thing that Bitcoin really gives you is the control over time. And there's a saying, basically, to be rich is to have a lot of time, but to be wealthy is to have control over your time. And I would choose being wealthy over rich any day of the week, because time
Brilliant.
is the most important thing. And, you know, to me, Bitcoin is that time. And, you know, maybe to some newer listeners, I hope you're still on this thought of track, what we're spitting here with Webworthy, but Bitcoin is a time chain. Bitcoin changes the whole time dimension. And Bitcoin white paper never mentions a blockchain. It refers to it as a time chain. TikTok, next block. We count things in blocks. Every episode of this show that comes out, it doesn't have a date. It's got a block height at the bottom. Every episode from day one when I started, because we count things in block height. So yeah, I guess I'll give it to Webworthy, as I do to all guests. We spent a lot of advice in this one, but what is one last advice you would like to leave our listeners with, and especially some people that are only starting their Bitcoin journeys? What would be your piece of advice for them?
This one's been going around a lot, but I love this saying, you can do things, or you can just do things. That has really changed my life. And I'll leave viewers with this. I don't know if anyone's still listening. Maybe we'll see. Man,
There's going to be still some, for sure.
Let's go. Well, this is for the few. Sometimes it's nice to take a break from what's happening in Bitcoin. And a lot of time when I do that and look at something else, it makes me come back and see Bitcoin a little bit differently, or even like a little more special. And something that I have really, really gotten into the last couple months. And what got me to Bitcoin in this place 10 years ago, and I don't love him this week, but Elon Musk said, I think we live in a simulation. And a lot of other mathematicians or other people had said that. He was the first person I had said it. And I love this guy, George Hotz. And he had kind of said in a talk maybe 5 years ago, just like we hacked the video game worlds, I think someone is going to figure out a way to hack at the edge of our world. And I personally believe I've found two groups, and they're not my discoveries. These are two very similar, like Bitcoin in the early days. a very small group of people experimenting on this thing that they believe to be true to them from their experience. And the easiest, most palpable one is called the telepathy tapes. It's number one on Apple Podcasts right now. It is an unbelievable story. It's so good. I won't ruin the ending, but it will make you think digital money for a digital world. And the other group is called the Discovery. And this is not something I've ever done, but I've taken a lot of psychedelics in my life. And I always wondered if what I'm seeing is my reality, or is this I'm just on drugs and this is a dream. Well, some people have started testing that you can see more than what's there. It's not just hallucinations. So check out a guy, Danny Goler, on X, and his project's called The Discovery. And both of these two groups are basically coming to the same conclusion that maybe we live in some simulacra or some simulated experience. And in that server, I can just do things. I can be a free agent and I can read the data and I can write to the server, read the server and write to the server. So as long as I can be that free agent in this digital world and I got Bitcoin as my time, like if I can just keep those first principles true, then I think I can do anything.
Man, that was some deep advice right there. Usually it's all about like education, get some skin in the game. But you took it like a few levels down, like took it underground. But I love it because, just to give my take, like who knows, like no one knows for certain this life is really real. Like we're essentially like biologically we're blind species. Like 98% of light we don't even see it. So like who knows what's actually out there? We're just like some atoms vibrating, and I believe there's a computer in front of me, but God knows what else is in front of me. Yeah, like thanks for doing that, shout out. And anybody that's interested in these topics and talking about simulations, definitely check out the recommendations from Webworthy.
Yeah, check that out. Telepathy tapes and Danny Goler. And please reach out to me if you do, because I'm dying to talk to anybody about it because it's been so cool.
There we go. Let's do a plug. And to close it off, where can we send our listeners to follow your work and keep updated with your projects? What's the best place?
On X and Nostr, I'm just Webworthy. Best thing, go to the BTC Pay Server YouTube and hit a like and subscribe for me.
I was going to say.
That's for the next few months. I got to just do some simple stuff and answer some comments of like, we just need some old or simple tutorials again, because there's the 2.0 stuff. There is so much in the app now that we haven't covered. So please go to the BTC Pay Server YouTube. Other than that, check out the rest of the team. Nicholas Dorier, Rockstar Dev. We have some amazing people. Dennis, Destruct. It's an amazing team. And Tobes, like, it's a great group. Pavlik, of course. I'm trying to remember everybody. But it's an amazing team. And if you ever have any questions, you guys or anyone can join us in our Mattermost, which is just chat.btcpayserver.org if you ever have any questions.
Amazing. Well, Webworthy, thanks so much for coming on. I thoroughly enjoyed so much this conversation and hearing your story. I was looking forward to this one because there was a lot of things.
Thank you.
I like having more of a creative, artsy discussion than like technical stuff. And now NGUs are all fun and stuff, but like it's more about the philosophical, like the questions of why are we here in this world? So I hope you enjoyed it too. And I hope we can do this again sometime in the future.
I had a great time, man. Anytime, I'd love to join you again, man. Thank you again, Gigi, for having me. It was awesome.
My pleasure. Until next time, stack sats, stack time.
Thank you for tuning in. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit too. Your support keeps us going, and we appreciate it. See you in the next one.